Ambition is the lifeblood of a great nation. And right now, our nation is more ambitious than any other. There's no nation like our nation. Americans are explorers, builders, innovators, entrepreneurs, and pioneers. The spirit of the frontier is written into our hearts. The call of the next great adventure resounds from within our souls. Our American ancestors turned a small group of colonies on the edge of a vast continent into a mighty republic of the most extraordinary citizens on earth. No one comes close. Americans pushed thousands of miles through a rugged land of untamed wilderness. They crossed deserts, scaled mountains, braved untold dangers, won the Wild West, ended slavery, rescued millions from tyranny, lifted billions from poverty, harnessed electricity, split the atom, launched mankind into the heavens, and put the universe of human knowledge into the palm of the human hand. If we work together, there is nothing we cannot do and no dream we cannot achieve. Many people thought it was impossible for me to stage such a historic political comeback. But as you see today, here I am. The American people have spoken.
We have spoken. How you guys doing? What a week it's been. Hasn't it been amazing? It feels like that was like a month and a half ago at least. That was 6 days ago. My God. Welcome, everybody. Our friend Amber Harris, almost a co-host, is back once again. And we have a special guest tonight, Jeremy Rodgers, who will be talking about his experience with Trump's first days in office. Jeremy was, and Jeremy's an old buddy of mine, actually. We go way back. But he was charged with various things relating to January 6th and was one of the many people that just got an unconditional pardon. So welcome, Jeremy. Good to have you on the show.
Thanks for having me, Adam.
Yeah, man. I didn't even really bother to write out a whole lot of notes for tonight because there's so many dang things to talk about. Wow. I mean, It is just absolutely out of the gate. Trump is just, was like 200 executive orders in his first day, something close to that. And it just feels like that. And you saw in that clip I just played, the spirit of American greatness is back. And that's like in everything Trump is saying, everything that he's doing. And you just can't help but feel like that, like this contagion that was hanging over our country for the last 4 years has been lifted. And you probably feel it more than we do. Like, I know I feel pretty good, but man, yeah. So let's, I guess, I know a bit about your case, but for the benefit of the audience, I mean, why don't you sit at the table a little bit and tell us like what you've been through? I guess you should probably go back to January 6th, but yeah, I'll let you at least introduce yourself and kind of tell people like where things began here and what you've been through up until last week. So long story short, here you go.
All right. Well, I'll do my best, Adam. I could probably talk about it for a long time, but I'll try to be concise. Yeah. But obviously, Adam, you and I do go back quite a ways. I think, 14 years at this point?
Yeah,
11 years. 11 years.
Yeah. We worked on Gary Glenn's campaign for state representative together. You were his campaign manager, and I was his consultant. I don't think I got on board a full year before, so I don't think it was as early as 2013. But no, it might have been.
No, because you came on in 2014.
No, 2013. That's right. I left Washington in early 2014. So yeah, 2014 it was.
Yep, and I actually came and stayed with you, if you remember, in December of 2013.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah,
when I was there for the Leadership Institute's campaign management school. So that was the first time we actually met. But yeah, we go way back, and I've spent the better part of that decade working in politics in various roles. Worked on a number of campaigns, including Gary Glenn's state house race in 2014, and worked for Bill Schuette when he ran for governor in 2018. And then spent almost 2 years in the Michigan Senate. You don't even look
old enough to do any of that.
Well, thank you. But yeah, then I spent 2 years, and actually, I think, Adam, you were working in Lansing at the same time that I was working in Lansing as well. I worked in the Michigan Senate for Senator Jim Stamas for
That's
just
right.
under 2 years.
That's
Yeah.
right. Yeah.
So we didn't, our paths didn't cross that often, but
No. The
we
House
were
and
both
Senate
there
are
at the same
surprisingly
time.
isolated.
Yeah, we even have our own Bigbies. So,
Yeah.
but
Sure.
yeah, and then in 2018, I'd run for city council in the city of Midland, Michigan, which is where I live, and I lost by 28 votes, and ran again in 2020 and ended up losing by 9 votes after I did a recount. I had
Oh
originally
man.
lost by 11. So I've been active in my community, active in politics. I was a national delegate for Donald Trump in 2020. So I've been very, very involved, member of the executive committee for our county party for 4 years. I believe that election in 2020 was stolen. I still believe that.
Sure.
Article 1, Section 4 of the Constitution makes it quite clear that state legislatures are the ones who set rules for federal elections in their state. And we had multiple swing states in 2020, including our own, where either the Secretary of State or the governor unilaterally bypassed the state legislature and changed their state's election laws. So I thought that when I heard Trump was having that rally, that it was my patriotic duty to go and stand up for what I believed to be the truth, for what I believed to be right.
Yeah.
And never in a million years, Adam, did I expect the fallout that came from that day. And never in a million years did I anticipate ever being able to utter the words, "I've been pardoned by the President of the United States."
No kidding,
And
man.
I would be remiss before I go any further, I want to say thank you to President Trump. And I am very thankful for him staying true to his word. And he told us after the election that he was going to govern with the philosophy of promises made, promises kept, and he has done that.
Well, you
Yeah,
did
politicians
nothing
often
wrong.
don't keep their word. They don't have to when they get elected.
Right.
Yet he did.
Right.
And he pardoned Ross Ulbricht too. So good on him for
Yes,
that.
he did. Yep.
Yep.
Do you think he'll pardon Snowden?
I don't know. I mean, it's almost a moot point because I don't think Snowden's going to come back. But even still,
Yeah.
But he might. I mean, the thing I thought was amazing, and there've been articles about how originally he was going to kind of look at all the January 6th on kind of a case by case basis because he was concerned some of them were violent, and the issue, of course, being like in your case, they accused you for waving a flag of that was a deadly weapon and all this other garbage. So there could have been a lot of mess there, and I think Trump wisely just said, you know what, F it, I'm pardoning them all, and which is what he did. And I thought it was hilarious when it was Jacob Chansley, the famous MAGA shaman guy, when he got pardoned, and the first thing he says on X, he goes, "Trump pardoned me. First thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna buy some mother effing guns." And I mean, the thing about him, like when he first got arrested and charged and all that, like my first reaction was, you know what? He made MAGA look bad, so screw him. But at the same time, like the fact that Trump didn't care, pardoned him and everybody else, like that makes it even better. It makes it even sweeter that there was no, oh, some of them were bad. No, you know what? Not a single one of you guys got a fair trial. Not even him. So, I mean, that should be the end of it right there and then.
Well, in his specific case, the QAnon shaman, the government actually withheld exculpatory evidence, and they ended up releasing him shortly after that was found out that had happened at his trial. And I don't remember what reason they gave for his early release, but they did not say that it was because they had withheld that evidence, but I'm pretty sure that's why. So
Yeah. I like that one.
I'm going to talk about the Biden pardons in a moment, but actually this is the clip that one I meant to click on was Mark saying, yeah, you definitely don't look old enough to have done these things. But anyway,
it's amazing.
Believe it or not, I'm 30.
Yeah. Well,
That's
anyway,
good. That's good for you. You look young.
Yeah. But no, I mean, one of the things that came up in these January 6th cases is you guys were all charged in Washington, and you cannot get a fair jury in Washington. Like everyone who's ever done a poll has said, you poll potential jurors and like 95% of them say, I'm just going to convict anybody no matter what the facts are. And that absolutely is not a fair trial. And the judges, every single one of them in every single case, just completely ignored that fact. So every one of these judges, I mean, frankly, they should be impeached. Not that they could be, because of the Democrats, they'll never do the right thing. But that's just how. That's just how. I mean, there's a famous quote from John Adams. He said, "Our Constitution was made only for a moral and religious people. It is wholly inadequate to the government of any other." Meaning, the system can't work when you've got half the country that's a bunch of complete lunatics that are effectively a lynch mob. And that's what you have in Washington. That's just the overwhelming majority. You can't even get 1 in 12 people. So,
yeah, and it was for that reason, Adam, that I actually opted to go the route of a bench trial. I did have a Trump-appointed judge. I'm not sure that really helped anything, but I knew, when your jury pool is 95% Democrat, there's no way you're going to get a fair jury. So we decided to go the route of a We decided to go the route of a bench trial, and we did have some wins on some of the charges that I was facing, and I don't think I would have had I gone the route of a jury trial. I think I would have just been convicted of everything, and so I think it was the right move to decide to do a bench trial. But yes, I agree with your assessment entirely. There was no fair trial that took place in DC, not one.
Yeah. Alga News says, let DC districts, the DC judicial district, be absorbed by neighboring districts, reassign judges to different ones, use the courthouse but as part of neighboring districts, open up the jury pool. Yeah, I mean, that certainly would be a relief, although, you might argue that folks in Maryland and Virginia wouldn't want their jury pool tainted by these scum people. I mean, that's the real problem, is there's no penalty for these judges that run their courtrooms this way. And there's no easy answer. But yeah, certainly, though, definitely the reform has to be done. I don't know why Republicans are so shy about this kind of stuff. Like, even when they have majorities, like, why do they allow Eleanor Holmes Norton? Like, this came up when I was working in Washington. We had a bill about the DC traffic cameras, because what Washington would do is they put these traffic cameras up everywhere because they could tax everyone that lives in Maryland, Virginia, and everyone, flying into town and what have you. And so DC's like, you can't do this. This violates our Home Rule Act and blah, 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 blah. It's like, well, not really. We're Congress. We do whatever we want. You have no vote in Congress. We only delegate you the right to rule yourself. And yet they still do that. I hope Trump just smashes when he gets around to it. I know it's like, the 1,000th priority on his list, but I hope he just absolutely smashes the DC government, or tells the Republicans in Congress to get on that, because they should just have a special panel that just literally, like, they could literally dissolve DC's entire city government or district government and replace it with people appointed by Republicans. And it wouldn't, and even if Democrats take over someday, it couldn't be any worse than it is now,
Right.
So
it's horrible.
And another important question too, Adam, is prosecutors have an insane amount of power. And I'm not sure what the solution is, but I think that is something, that's another issue that needs to be looked at. I mean, we saw it in the Trump indictments, that 4 different indictments from different prosecutors around the country. Their discretion and the power that they have is out of control. Yeah,
absolutely. And
the courts rein them in. I mean, but they don't do that.
Yeah. Anyway, so what happens next? You've got this bench trial.
Yeah.
The judge finds you guilty anyway, basically.
Well, so I'm going to back up for just a second if I can. So I just went to trial in December of this last year, but so basically, I found out, I didn't think I'd done anything wrong that day. I left, I saw what the news was saying about that day, and I thought it was absolutely absurd. They were lying through their teeth. They were picking, certain clips that they had edited to, try to make that day look just absolutely terrible and vicious, which was not the case. I found out, though, a few months after that a photo of me was on the FBI wanted list for that day, like in April, I think it was, of 2021. So I've been living with this hanging over my head for almost 4 years, and it's been very difficult.
I'm sure.
It's kind of hard to put into words, but just the stress and anxiety of dealing with that for so long is, I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. I'll put it that way. But when I found that out, I consulted with a friend of mine who's an attorney and just asked him, what do I do? Like, I don't think I did anything wrong. Should I just go turn myself in, or what should I do? And his advice to me was basically just, look, nothing good is going to come from turning yourself in. You're going to end up
Yep.
going to DC, and you're going to be found guilty of something. Just keep your head down. Try to live your life as best you can. Go to work, live as normally as you can, and see what happens. So that's what I did. And my first interaction with the FBI occurred almost 2 years later. I think it was about 20 months after I first found out that I was on that list. And it was December of 2022. So like 2 weeks before Christmas, I had 2 FBI agents show up to my office. Even though, Adam, I lived less than a quarter mile, and I still live less than a quarter mile away from where I was working at the time. They very easily could have decided to come to my house and approach me, but instead they came to my work because they wanted to create a scene and try to cost me my job, which unfortunately they succeeded in doing. I lost my job 2 days after their visit, but they came to my office and asked me, hey, we'd like to interview you about an ongoing investigation. They didn't say what it was. Of course, I suspected what it may be related to. And I just told them what, by the way, anybody listening, you should always answer this way. It doesn't matter if it's a local cop, a sheriff, an FBI agent. Anytime law enforcement wants to interview you, you be polite and respectful, but you tell them, gentlemen or ma'am, I appreciate that you have a job to do. I am not comfortable answering questions without an attorney present. And that's exactly what I told the 2 FBI agents there that day. They shook my hand, gave me a business card, and said, well, please have an attorney contact us. So I called the same attorney that I had consulted with almost 2 years prior to that and told him what had happened. He called the FBI office where these 2 agents were headquartered out of in Bay City, Michigan, and left them a voicemail. And on that very day that they came. So they never got back to us. 2 days later, I was fired. And I believe that the attorney also contacted me and told me he was going to send them an email at the end of the week because he hadn't heard back, and he didn't want them to come back to us and say, hey, you never complied with our request to have an attorney contact us. So we had a paper trail. We'd called, we'd emailed. In the meantime, I'd lost my job right before Christmas. Merry Christmas. Ended up working for my dad. He had called me in January and told me that he had an opportunity for me down south with him. He lives in Florida. And ended up working with him for the next 6 months and didn't hear a single thing, not a single word from the FBI or anybody. And I was working in Georgia and got a phone call from my wife telling me that our house had been raided by the FBI that morning at 6 a.m. I wasn't there, obviously. They bashed in our front door, pointed rifles at my wife and at my 2 children. I have 2 boys at the time. They were 2 and 3 years old. Took them in their pajamas out of our house, shoved them in a van, and then went into our house. And they said that they were searching our house. They trashed our house. That's really what happened. Took all of our clothes out of our closet and just threw things all over the place. Stepped on my children's toys, broke their toys. I even had an American flag that was hanging in my closet that I was always raised to respect the flag. You don't let the flag touch the ground. If the flag is worn out, you take it to, I think, the American Legion or something like that, and they properly dispose of the flag. I've always been respectful of the flag. That's how I was raised. And they basically just took the flag and tossed it aside, threw it on the ground, and just super disrespectful. Yeah. And the warrant said that they were looking. What's that?
I hope every one of these people loses their job. And by the way,
I sure hope so. They're
if you feel like naming the employer that fired you, that's fine by me. I'm happy to, let people know who
I have gone back and forth on that, Adam. I even had an aunt and uncle turn me in and try to call local newspapers and leave anonymous tips about me. Yeah. I was serving on the Midland Planning Commission at the time. And the conclusion I've come to is if I name them, I'm stooping to their level. They know who they are, and they have to live with that the rest of their lives.
It's really big.
And I hope they have to. And I hope they know what they put my children through.
Yeah.
So the warrant that the FBI served my wife it said that they were looking for schematics and blueprints of the Capitol building. And it was just absolutely absurd. It was laughable.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, they ended up taking nothing from my house, not a single thing. But they traumatized my children and put us through that for no reason. We had tried to comply with their request. We contacted them. I would have met with them and done an interview if I had the ability to have an attorney present. But what really frustrates me as well is the FBI agent that led the raid told my wife that he had been watching our house for some time, but that he didn't know I wasn't there. So either he is extremely incompetent at his job, or he intentionally waited until I was not home to intimidate my family.
Yeah.
And I think he's a piece of scum. And I hope he loses his job and never gets a job in law enforcement ever again, because he's a jackbooted thug.
Yeah. Nice.
Absolutely. I think we can all agree on that one.
Anyway. All right. So
I turned myself in the next day. And Adam, I'm sorry, I kind of cut you off. If you
go ahead.
Wanted to interject. I turned myself in the day after that raid that I found out that happened. I was asked to do so. And of course I complied with that. I'm a law abiding citizen. I've been my entire life. The worst thing on my record is, maybe a speeding ticket. Never broke the law. Of course, I'm going to comply with this request. I turned myself in. That was very intimidating. I was met by probably a dozen agents outside of the FBI headquarters building in Orlando, because that's where I was at the time. And they took me in, blueprinted me. Sorry, still thinking about the Capitol building, I guess.
Right.
No, but they fingerprinted me and processed all the information that they had to process, and took me to the courthouse in Orlando. I spent, 3 or 4 hours in jail there that day before I was able to get in front of a judge. And Adam, they treated me so terribly. I mean, I have no criminal record. At the time, this was 2 years ago. So I'm 28 years old. And they put chains around my ankles. They put a chain around my waist and handcuffed me to that chain around my waist. So, I mean, they're basically treating me like I'm some violent, murderer. Yeah, and then paraded me through the courthouse into the courtroom. And anyway, at the end of the day, what ended up happening was the judge ruled that I could be released on my own recognizance. I did not have to post bail or anything like that. So I'm thankful for that.
That was a lucky break compared to what some people got.
Yeah. I know. It definitely was. And at the end of the day, also, my restrictions were rather limited. I mean, they were basically just the standard restrictions for somebody who's facing a federal indictment. There weren't any additional, requirements that they placed on me. Basically, I could travel anywhere in the United States as long as I gave them 4 days notice, except for the District of Columbia, Alaska, and Hawaii. So it could have been a lot worse, and I'm thankful that it wasn't.
Yeah. Mark wants to know if you still live in Michigan.
I do. I still live in Midland. Yeah.
Excellent. So the bench trial, the judge just finds you guilty because you want to tell us that, and then the sentencing, I guess?
Yeah. So what ended up happening was
every single step of this is it's psychological torture. It's also financial abuse too, because all of this stuff is backbreakingly expensive to deal with and intrusive and expensive. And, it's all of these things. It's really awful.
It was not a cheap experience.
No, and you don't get that back even.
No.
But anyway, so now what?
Yeah. So basically then it was just, find an attorney, which I was able to do. Originally I hired John Pierce to represent me. And basically it was just a series of hearings and motions and scheduling a trial. I had to go to DC for an arraignment in October of that year of 2023. And trial was originally set for May, but we were successful in arguing to the judge that we wanted a delay because the Supreme Court had taken up the obstruction of Congress charge.
Oh yeah,
I forget what was the name of that case. I'm spacing out.
I forget the name too, but the case you're referring to for the audience was the case where the Supreme Court said basically a lot of these charges were invalid because they couldn't be just considered to be obstructing Congress, and so it didn't mean everyone
specifically one.
Freed, but
sorry, Adam, I didn't mean to cut
it could lead to a lot of felony charges that had to be knocked down to misdemeanors and caused a lot of things to be changed, and it caused a lot of delays and a lot of relief for a lot of people, but also made things take a lot longer.
Yeah, it was specifically the 1512 charge. So when they indicted me, I had a 6-count a 9-count indictment, 6 felonies and 3 misdemeanors, one of which was obstructing Congress. And so we argued to the judge that we needed a delay. It was Fisher versus the United States. That's what it was.
Oh, there you go.
But we argued that we needed a delay to see what the Supreme Court was going to rule on that because that directly impacted my case. The judge agreed. We got trial pushed into September. So that would have been September of 2024. So my attorney and I ended up kind of having a bit of a falling out. I ended up firing him. And
yeah, I was going to say, I remember John Pierce. Wasn't he like Kyle Rittenhouse's first attorney or something like that?
Yep.
And he fired him? Yeah.
Yep, that's true. And I can't say anything bad about John. The time that he represented me, I didn't really have any issues with him as far as feeling like he was not doing his job or anything like that. But we ended up kind of just having some communication issues. And I ended up deciding to go a different route and brought on board Bill Shipley to represent me. I guess that was the very end of September of last year. So I switched attorneys. That because I had switched attorneys somewhat close to trial, we got trial pushed into December. So after the election at that point. Wow. Originally, and this part is kind of a little tedious. I don't know how much detail I should give, but the most serious crime I was charged with, and the reason I kind of want to go into detail here, the most serious crime that I was charged with was assaulting a federal officer with a dangerous or deadly weapon. That was what the original indictment said. Yeah. The statute they had charged me under was 111.
Flag, but it really was. That's what they charged you with.
Well, it was a Trump flag, but I mean, a flag on a broomstick that I purchased at a Home Depot, because I didn't have anything else to use as a flagpole. But that was what the original indictment said. And
the plastic broomstick?
It was wood. But I don't know, probably some kind of, I don't know if it was pine or, what the wood was. I really don't know. But
even still.
Yeah.
That's a little tactical.
Yeah. So basically that statute they charged me under, 111B, has 2 prongs to it. There's the dangerous or deadly weapon prong, and then there's bodily injury. And initially, they only charged me with using a dangerous or deadly weapon. But to be found guilty of that statute, you only have to be found guilty of one of those 2 prongs, not both. So the officer that I allegedly assaulted, it was about a 5-second interaction, and it was accidental and virtually inconsequential. I did not hurt this guy. I didn't assault him. Total garbage allegation. But he did a series of 5 interviews with the FBI, starting pretty soon after the events of that day. And in his first 3 interviews with the FBI, he never once stated that I caused him any harm of any kind. No pain, nothing like that, never alleged any sort of injury. The officer, however, did specifically discuss with the FBI other injuries that he had sustained that day. Then in November of 2023, so 1 year, just over 1 year before I went to trial, the FBI did a 4th interview with the officer and asked him, this interaction that occurred with Mr. Rodgers here, was this painful? And the reason they were asking him that question is
you're fishing.
The statute that defines bodily injury includes a statement that essentially says, If you cause an officer any amount of pain, or any duration of time, that constitutes assault.
So it was a rigged trial, basically.
Well, right. So the fourth interview, they specifically asked him that. It gets worse, Adam. They asked him that, and he said, no, it was not painful.
Wow.
Then June of 2024 rolls around. The Supreme Court throws out that 1512 obstruction of Congress charge in the Fisher case.
Yeah.
And within 2 months after that, they do a fifth interview with the officer.
So this
and
is
ask him again
to preserve the felony charge, basically, is what's going on here.
Well,
is that right?
well, no, because that didn't impact this particular charge. But they lost one of their other felony counts, and they were upset about it. And so they wanted to make sure they nailed me to the wall somehow. And basically, they went back to this officer and did a fifth and final interview with him and asked him again, was this painful? And for the first time ever, more than 3.5 years after the events of that day, the officer says, oh, yes, it was painful. I remember every blow to the head, or something along those lines.
My God.
So 2 days later, they slapped me with a superseding indictment, and they alleged the second prong of that 111B charge of causing bodily injury.
And the judge has no reasonable doubts about any of these things, of course.
No. So
just like no jury.
The other thing that's really interesting about the timing of all of this is, so the feds lost one of their serious felony charges against me, which was the 1512 count. That's a 20-year felony. So they wanted to make sure this other 20-year felony would stick. If the feds want to bring a superseding indictment, they have to do so at least 30 days before a scheduled trial date. So this interview of this officer, this fifth interview, happened 5 days before that 30-day deadline. They brought the superseding indictment like 2 days later. So they barely made the time frame in which they would have had to comply with to bring that superseding indictment. Well, anyway, trial gets delayed. We go to trial, and we basically told the judge, and we worked with the prosecution on this. We're like, hey, we're not going to contest the misdemeanor charges. We don't care about those. They're not, I mean, honestly, I know a lot of people with misdemeanors. Big whoop. What's really serious is this assault charge, and I didn't do this. So when you stipulate to a charge, my attorney explained it to me as being not an admission of guilt, but you're essentially just saying, we're not going to fight you on this. So that's what we did. And we said, we're going to focus on essentially 10 seconds of video clip of this so-called assault that took place. And at the end of the trial, the officer, he got up on the stand and testified, and he said that, oh, yes, it was painful, blah, blah, blah. In our cross-examination, we pointed all of the things I just laid out to you in the last 5 minutes here to the judge about the change in his story, about the timing of the superseding indictment.
Yeah.
And we thought for sure, there's no way that's not reasonable doubt. Either this officer was coached, or he perjured himself, or maybe both. And the judge at the end of the day said, well, I found the officer's testimony to be credible. And he found me guilty of causing bodily injury, but he did rule in my favor on the assault with a dangerous or deadly weapon. He said that the flagpole was not a dangerous or deadly weapon. Okay. But either way, found me guilty of that 20-year felony. So I thought that day I was going to the DC gulag, because typically if you're convicted of that statute, you're immediately taken into custody.
Wow.
The government argued that they wanted the judge to do that. And ultimately the judge overruled them and said, no, I'm not going to detain him because you cannot guarantee me that in 40 days, I think is what it was, 40 days from now, when the change of administration takes place, that he's not going to be granted a new trial, or there won't be some sort of change that happens with the DOJ.
Oh, good.
So I'm very thankful for that. That was a small mercy, but disappointed with the judge finding me guilty of assault, which I did not do.
Yeah, you got the Trump-appointed judge, probably one of the better ones, and even still, you can't get a fair trial in Washington. It's unbelievable, man. And I mean, maybe some folks in the audience, I'm probably like me. I feel like we've heard about this atrocity for the past 4 years, but it's so much. We have to remember just how evil this entire thing has been, and when it really nauseates me when I hear people, complaining about Trump pardoning you guys as if you haven't already been put through hell to begin with, as if this you haven't suffered enough for the non-crimes that you didn't get a fair trial on in the first place. But
right.
But yeah, just to I do want to make a couple of points about this, but first I want you to finish your story. So you were found guilty of a felony. Did you get a sentence yet, or they just deferred sentencing?
Yeah. So no, again, I'm not an attorney, so I'm not an expert on all of these things.
And they didn't give you a number of years you're gonna have to serve or something.
My attorney told me I was probably looking at something between the range of 2 to 4 years because I was a first-time offender. I had no criminal record, but still, total crap. And
that's putting it
sentencing was scheduled for February 28th.
Yeah.
So I got to go home and be home for Christmas and for New Year's, which I was very thankful for. Didn't have to go to the DC gulag. And of course, I knew that Trump had campaigned on pardoning the J6ers. But then after he won, then there's this nagging thought in the back of my mind, well, is he only going to pardon the nonviolent offenders? Because technically I'm a violent offender.
Yeah, he promised some people going to pardon Julian Assange too.
Right. And so I was felt a little relief knowing that Trump had won the election. But it was still very concerned about would Trump actually follow through on his promise. And I hoped so, but it was a stressful time. And of course, I was thinking about the fact that, man, I might get a presidential pardon. Not very many people have those. Not very many people can say that they've been pardoned by the president of the United States. Yeah. And that was kind of special. And then Joe Biden pardoned 8,000 people. So far less special now.
Yeah, although the people he pardoned were like murderers,
pedophiles,
pedophiles, rapists. Those are the people Joe Biden looks after. Anyway, I want to play the clip now of Trump signing the pardon document. Here we go. This is on day one, of course.
Of pardons and commutations relating to events that occurred on January 6, 2021.
Okay, and how many people is this?
I think this order will apply to approximately 1,500 people, sir.
So this is January 6th. These are the hostages. Approximately 1,500 for a pardon.
Yes.
Full pardon.
Full pardon or commutations?
Full pardon. We have about 6 commutations in there where we're doing further research. Nice to see you again.
I like how he's talking to the media as he's doing these things, something Biden never ever did.
Anything you want to explain about this? We hope they get him. We hope they come out tonight, frankly. They're expecting it.
So natural.
Approximately 1,500 people. Six commutations.
Were there any cases you did not commute or pardon of people?
We're looking at different things, but the commutations would be the ones that we'll take a look, and maybe it'll stay that way, or it'll go to, full pardon.
And the order does require the Bureau of Prisons to act immediately on receipt of the pardons and commutation orders. Sir, this is
Why don't we get that down so they can get them going right now?
Yes, sir.
Is that okay?
That's how much you
absolutely. Care. This is a proclamation guaranteeing the state's protection against invasion based on the current crisis at the southern border. It invokes various executive powers relating to the ongoing invasion at the southern border.
Let me also protect all you other innocent Americans right now. Let me find another order real quick here.
This is such an amazing video to watch.
Confident that those are not going to be blocked by the courts.
I don't think they will. I don't think they can be. They're very straight up. Why don't you take that and go over here? Could you get him over here, not on the side angle? Do you mind? Just go right over here with your friends. Okay?
Sir, this is an executive order realigning the United States refugee admission program to better align with American principles and American interests.
We're going to clip right here. I love the way he signs that document too. He takes his time with his signature. It's not just like a scribble like I have, but it's like every one of these. Like,
did you see the one where he was like in the stadium too, and he was doing a couple of the executive orders in the stadium, like throwing the pens? So good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, Jeremy, that's amazing.
Yeah, he pardoned.
It was a pretty amazing feeling.
Yeah,
I'm
it's
good.
wonderful.
I remember when you messaged me and you're like, I have to go to trial before this whole thing. I'm like, what? So I can only imagine how you feel right now.
Well,
I
I'll
mean,
tell you, I don't think it's fully set in yet. I think I'm
yeah.
still
Yeah.
processing it. Um, but yes, it certainly is a weight off of my shoulders. So
Yeah.
now it's time to try to rebuild my life and figure out what I'm going to do next.
Well, is there
Um,
anything you can do to hold the government accountable? Have you thought about that? Has there been a class action thought about? I mean, what's next for you in that realm? Because
yes,
it's not right.
there are definitely class action lawsuits being discussed. I'm in a group chat with a number of other J6 defendants, and there's frankly there's at least a handful of class action lawsuits that are being discussed, and I don't know. I really don't know how this works because I'm not an attorney. I don't know if I can sign on to all of them or if you have to pick one or how that's going to work out. But I've signed on to at least one class action lawsuit.
Good for
So
And
you.
we'll see what happens.
what was the cost incurred from like your house? And so, I mean, obviously the emotional distress you can never quantify, but as far as like your house and the insurance and the kicking in your door and like property damage.
Right. Well, I don't know. I mean, so first of all, I had, including the job I was fired from,
Hmm.
I had, when the FBI showed up, I had a total of like 6 jobs, I think, in the last 2 years. I've just been trying to find work wherever I can. And this actually this is a perfect segue because one of the things I wanted to say is there are a lot of people that I know in Midland County. A lot of them I thought were my friends. And I'll tell you, when you go through something like this, you find out who your friends really are.
Yeah.
And not everybody that I thought was my friend was actually my friend. I want to thank the people who in the background supported me, and they know who they are. I had some friends help me financially when I needed it. I had friends that would call and talk to me and just check in on me on a regular basis and let me know that they cared. So those folks, I want to make sure that they get recognition for what they did because it meant a lot to me. And so thank you to those people.
Yeah.
And then I also wanted to say that to me, the real heroes of the group of J6ers that were charged, about 1,600, are the people who spent years in prison in absolutely hellish conditions. People that spent, like Jake Lang, I think I just saw him do an interview tonight, and I believe he said he spent over 900 days in solitary confinement.
Oh
That's
my God.
torture.
It is.
And
Yeah,
those
that's
people,
torture.
I was proud to be there that day with people like that are patriots that love their country. And if I had to do it over again, I still would because I believe it was the right thing to do. And we had too many people sacrifice a lot more for their country than we've had to sacrifice in the last few years here to give us the freedoms that we have and enjoy. Our founding fathers, when they signed the Declaration of Independence, the line that they closed with was, "We mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor." And these people that went there on January 6th, they love their country. They are patriots. They're not traitors. They're not treasonous. They're not insurrectionists. They love their country, and they saw an illegal election take place, and they wanted to stand up for what was right. And those are the kinds of people that I'm proud to identify with. And I'm glad that despite everything that's happened, I'm glad that I've gotten to meet a lot of those people along the way.
Absolutely. A couple of questions. Stephanie Jacobson has 2. First, she wants to know: is there any way people can donate to you to help?
So I actually had shut down my Give, Send, Go because my attorney had told me that at sentencing, they were coming after people's Give, Send, Go and saying that we were trying to use our celebrity status to raise money or to make money, not to raise money.
Which is also
And they
another
were-
terrible crime by these federal prosecutors because they're inhibiting your ability to raise money for your own legal defense. I mean, that's barbaric.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Well,
I
we
shut
had
it
Dana
down.
Nessel that wanted to go after the electors, donors, and stuff like that. I mean, sorry, go
And
ahead.
that's still going on because those are state charges.
Right.
So people don't forget about those people. Their
Well,
nightmare
Marion's in
isn't
the
over.
chat. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Marion's
yeah.
in the chat right now.
I was talking with her
Yeah.
earlier today, actually. So
Yeah, and she wanted a question too. Are you getting a copy of a pardon? Is that a thing?
Did you get your copy, right? I
do they
thought I
send
saw
you
a
one?
picture of you.
I actually have to request it.
Oh,
no
okay.
kidding.
What I posted on Facebook was a picture of the order that the judge signed dismissing my indictment with prejudice. So I should still get a copy of the pardon, but I guess that's not something they automatically send to you. I guess you have to go to their website and request a copy. So I will be doing that. I have not done so yet.
Yeah. Kelly says we can't ever let this happen again. Also, Stephanie wants to know, did any of our Congress people help or
That's a good
support you in any
question.
way? I know one person who certainly did not. In fact, you throw you out under the bus first chance you got, and that's that piece of scum, Mike Rodgers. But I guess we don't have to talk about Mike Rodgers anymore, do we? Because he's not a U.S. senator.
Oh, unless he runs against Gary Peters. But yeah.
Yeah. But no, but seriously though, Jeremy, I mean, I assume our congressmen are all complete cowards because they all have been cowards as far as I've known any of them. But am I mistaken? Did any of them say a word for you?
No, nobody did.
John Molinar didn't say a word for you, despite him knowing you, because I know he knows you.
I'm not.
John Molinar.
Yeah, Congressman Molinar. I'm not going to name any names or point any fingers. These people have to live with themselves, knowing what they did or didn't do, and that's punishment enough. I can say that I was trying to be respectful of people in positions of power or elected office that I knew, and I didn't want to put them in any sort of awkward position. So I never contacted them directly myself, but I had other friends that I asked to reach out to various people. And one congressman in particular. And I know that that congressperson refused to do anything. I was told that by my friend that I had asked to reach out, just to see if there was anything. And to be fair, I'm not even really sure what they could have done. I mean,
well,
I don't know what their authority or role is.
I'm thinking about right now. I'm thinking about an innocent man who's locked up right this very minute, a Michigan police officer whose only crime was protecting his community, who had lawfully pulled over someone who had a fake license plate on his car, so made a lawful traffic stop. When the suspect fled, the brave police officer chased him down, leading to him getting into a fist fight with this suspect, who then seized the officer's taser. And then while they were fighting for control of a deadly weapon on the ground, the officer, finally having no other choice, since they are in the act of fighting for control of a deadly weapon, shot the suspect, a Congolese immigrant, Patrick Lioya. That's, of course, I'm talking about Christopher Schur. And there is a Grand Rapids prosecutor right now who has spent the last 2 years trying to put that guy away. And I am thinking about what's going to happen, because that case is going to trial this April. And I'm looking into what we can do to raise public awareness. I want a member of the legislature to impeach that judge, because the evidence was proof positive that the officer was acting in self-defense, not guilty, not innocent, not guilty beyond a reasonable doubt, innocent beyond a reasonable doubt, a case that should have never been brought to trial. And if a legislator were to impeach that judge, and congressmen could have impeached your judge, by the way, the federal judges, just as a state lawmaker can impeach a state judge, that would draw attention to this outrageous injustice. And if they held news conferences,
it's standing up. I mean, what do you say what the Congress people can't do? They're running our country. What can't they do, Jeremy? That's
and at the end of the day, I've got another very good friend from the east side of the state that's a former state legislator, and I've had a lot of conversations with him about this. But we all know what an elected official's number one priority is, and it's not you or me. It's not the good of the country. It's not any of those things. It's
getting reelected.
And oh man, that might be scary for me to do something difficult. Heaven forbid that I put myself out there and do something like that.
And I think part of the whole reason why Trump won this election is because of them going after him in the exact same way they went after all of you guys. you know, with all these bogus charges. Trump might not have won the primary if not for the fact that everybody at that moment, after those first debates, when those charges came down from Alan Bragg and Jack Smith, is that the guy's name, right? Jack Smith, federal prosecutor?
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yep.
Yeah. And then we have to stand behind President Trump because if it's not him, it's us next. And yeah, I think that and to see Trump fighting back against all this garbage, and then he doubled down again with freeing all of those pro-life protesters, which for those who might not miss this story, it kind of got lost in the shuffle because of Inauguration Day. But on Inauguration Day, Cecile Richards died. And I'm just sorry she couldn't see those pro-lifers those pro-life protesters before, you know, in the last moments of her conscience, this mass murderer. Cecile Richards, the former president of Planned Parenthood, probably did more to kill more babies than anyone ever alive did. Yeah. So she's dead and you guys are free. And I'm happy for all of you.
And Adam, I forgot to tell you, I do have some contact information for you there.
Yeah, I was going to say, I remember because one of those people that Trump freed, a couple of them are from Michigan. I remember because you and I worked in this campaign, and one of the this lady that worked in the campaign with us as a volunteer, wonderful woman. I remember she had named. I remember that she was talking about Cal Zastro. So
yep. So I've got contact information for you that I'll share with you after we're done here.
Yeah. And that's a whole other story too. But I do want to talk. We do have some other topics to talk about because it's been inauguration week, almost an hour in already. But I think there's a couple other points that still have to be made yet about these pardons, because at the same time that, well, close in proximity to the time you guys were pardoned, Biden did what the media calls preemptively pardoning his family. Let's not let them get away with that little fib there, by the way. For something to be preemptive, it has to be, it was going to happen in the first place. There's no actual evidence Trump was going to go after Biden's family or Anthony Fauci or
Liz Cheney.
Or Liz Cheney. That's not even Trump's style. That was just Biden trying to get one last little dig on Trump on his way out the door. Oh, I have to do this because Trump is going to go after him if I don't do all complete nonsense.
I feel like he should now. I want to see him do it.
I think he's obligated to. I think he's obligated to. Pam Bondi should just say, you know what? They opened the door. Anthony Fauci accepted a pardon for what? For what? I mean, he didn't say, I'm not guilty of anything. I have no reason to accept any pardon for any federal crimes that I've committed in the last 10 plus years. Yeah, absolutely. And you know, the thing is, it's true that your pardon ends your punishment, but as Jeremy, you just pointed out in painstaking detail, the process is the punishment, and the pardon doesn't take that away. All these people should now be investigated. They should all be prosecuted on the grounds that, okay, what did you confess to? Right. What you clearly confessed to something, you know. Also, by being pardoned, you can, and I think Rand Paul and others have pointed this out, they can no longer hide behind the Fifth Amendment anymore. They can be hauled in front of grand juries, forced to testify, because you've just been given immunity. Now, you know, that immunity might not apply to state law, but, you know, where's the state attorneys general on this too, by the way? Okay. Because last time I checked, a lot of state crimes were committed in the, you know, genocide of, you know, millions of people around the world over the unleashing of COVID, for example. You know, I guess you wouldn't have any state charges with Mark Milley's treason, though. But, you know, surely he wasn't acting alone when he disobeyed his direct orders from Donald Trump, who were his co-conspirators, who gave him assurances that he could do that. Maybe Bill Barr. Was he in Bill Barr talking, perhaps? I'm just speculating here. Maybe a grand jury should find these things out. I'm not in favor of turning the cheek as much as you are, Jeremy. I mean, I love you for it, but I hope Pam Bondi and all these people really go hard. I mean, I'm sorry Matt Gaetz isn't the AG nominee, but you know, we'll see what happens with Pam Bondi gets in.
Right. Well, and I think Amber, you asked earlier about a specific dollar amount of damage. I couldn't really tell you for sure. I know that I raised, I think, about $10,000 to help pay my legal expenses, and borrowed some additional money to pay for legal expenses. But Probably all told, I've spent something around $25,000 on my first attorney and didn't even go to trial with him. My second attorney, thankfully, did not charge me. He had raised money to help
Oh, wow.
January 6th defendants, so that was a huge help. Trial is, of course, where you incur your biggest expense because it's a lot of hours and time invested in doing that. But a lot of money, lost my job. I'm thankful to still have my house. I know a lot of other J6ers lost literally everything. I mean, they were selling everything they owned to try to help pay their bills and not lose everything. And unfortunately, a lot of them did.
How are your
Yeah,
kids?
this is the Give Send Go, by the way, for your attorney.
Yeah.
GiveSendGo.com/shipwrecked
Now,
SJ6LDF looks like is the address.
My-
there in the address bar.
my attorney, I just found out some information. I didn't have necessarily any issues with him. I mean, I think he did a pretty good job representing me. But I just found out that there's an allegation that he had taken some money that he was not authorized to do so from a number of other J6 defendants. So maybe hold off on donating to that until the truth of what happened there is found out. But I was happy with what he did at trial for me, and thankful that he was willing to do that free of charge.
Yeah.
As far as a Give Send Go for me, my intention now that all of this is over is to get my Give Send Go back up. So maybe, Adam, once that's done, I can share that with you. And I don't know if you could send that out in an email blast.
Yeah, please let me know.
You know, I've worked odd jobs for the last 2 years, 6 different jobs, I said. I've managed to just barely keep my head above water. But I currently don't have a job, and I'm looking for one. And
and I assume these psychopaths,
soon.
the Democrats, I assume this cult is like stalking you everywhere you go and trying to get you fired anytime you find employment anywhere.
Yeah, well, I've never advertised since this all happened where I was working, and intentionally, because I don't want to cause people headaches, especially if they're going out of their way to hire me and do me a favor. But I mean, it's crazy. Even just, it's difficult going around in town. I mean, going to a restaurant with friends. I mean, I've had somebody approach a friend of mine and I while we were talking at a restaurant, and basically, you know, tried to warn them. Oh, I don't know if you know this about, you know, this guy, but he's, you know, a insurrectionist. And I mean,
I'd have lost my
just
temper
absolutely
spot right there.
Oh,
Man, I'm just even thinking about that makes my blood boil.
Yeah. So hopefully that all will end. And I also want us to get to the bottom of what happened in 2020 so that we have some answers.
No kidding.
What happened that year cannot happen again.
Absolutely not. And it's such a travesty of justice. The hypocrisy is so staggering, given everything the Democrats have done, especially in that freaking same year in 2020, when they burned down cities.
Hey, it was fiery but mostly peaceful. Fiery but mostly peaceful.
Yeah, it's just disgraceful. And of course, the other hypocrisy too is, you know, Trump in 2020 never attempted to pardon his family. People suggested it.
Right.
He might have considered it. He would have had good reason to, as a matter of fact, because as events that have transpired since then proved, there was a vindictive, malicious, evil federal government out to get him and his family the entire time. But he never pardoned any of them. But now Biden has. And,
well, that's what Biden do. They
this
do
president should be challenged too. I mean, if you think about it, the act of a pardon is looking back into the past and saying, "This is what has happened. I am ending it. Whatever punishment is now over with." What Biden's attempting to do is to prohibit a future president from prosecuting somebody for crimes that have not maybe even been discovered yet. That's like, and this comes up a lot in legislation. A legislature can't bind down a future legislature. They can't say, we're going to pass a law that changes the rules, that a future legislature can't do this the way we're doing it now. No, it doesn't work that way. So on the same principle, and nor can a past court can't bind a future court. A future court overturns a past court's decision. So there is nothing in law or logic or sense that would allow a president to restrict the actions of a future president. That's completely illogical. It's nonsensical.
Right.
So I think all the people that Biden pardoned, now the government should have an obligation to investigate them and prosecute them to the fullest extent of the law. And any court that says, "Oh, there's a pardon," nope, no, there wasn't. Not for what's happening now. I think this entire thing should be confronted and challenged.
Adam, what's interesting to me too is that I think before Biden took office, when there were people discussing Trump preemptively pardoning his family members, Biden was asked about it and said that, oh, he thought that would set a dangerous precedent.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
And Trump didn't do it, and then Joe Biden just did it.
Right.
Yeah,
clearly he wasn't too concerned
about.
And the danger is real too, because if this is allowed to stand, and again, Biden did this not even thinking Trump's going to really go after his family, but just to score a cheap political point. But now that the precedent's been set, when Trump leaves, why wouldn't he pardon everybody? Because he's on his he's on his way out, and he wouldn't know if he's beaten by Democrats somehow. If JD Vance is beaten by Democrats somehow, why wouldn't he pardon everybody? And the next guy, well, now to the past two presidents have done. Now that's what we do from now on. The president just pardons everybody on the way out the door for things they haven't even been convicted of yet, or even accused of yet. That's the fire think of how irresponsible that is. That Biden did this for a cheap political shot to permanently damage the institution of the presidential pardon. It's unfreaking believable.
Well, he cheapened everything else. Why not?
Yeah, that's true. He destroyed everything in this country. Why not destroy that too? I guess it's an afterthought compared to some of the other things. Yeah. Anyway.
Well, Adam, if I can jump in here, I think I'm going to have to wrap up here and get off. But
hey, thanks for
I just wanted to say,
we appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you for the invitation to join you, and maybe we can do it again.
Yeah, absolutely. You have an open invitation. Just let me know when you want to come on sometime, and let me know also if you get a GoFundMe going. We'll promote that too.
All right, that sounds great.
Thank you, Jeremy.
Good to see you, Amber. I'm sure I'll see you again soon, both of you. So,
all right, have a good one.
Take care. God bless Donald Trump, and God bless the United States.
And you too, buddy. Yep, it's a great day in America.
Amen.
All right. Anyway, so that was awesome.
Anyway,
you've got a story to tell too, because you went to the inauguration. I did not go. I was going to go.
You were supposed to.
I was supposed to. I even got a ball ticket, and people were like, "I want a ball ticket." But then when they said everything's going to be indoors and there's no outdoor ceremony, like I remember looking at that poster of the 2017 inauguration and seeing the crowd of people and be like, man, I wish I was in that crowd. And then as soon as that was called off, I was like, do I really want to go to Washington? Because Washington's not ordinarily Washington is a horrible place to visit.
It was a horrible place. Like the feeling you get when you're there, it's not like you're not warm and fuzzy. It's like nasty.
But was it different? Because people were saying like being in Washington, like there's a famous video, or not famous, there's a video been going around the internet now of Tucker Carlson walking down the streets of Washington and just like just waving at people and everything's cool, which is not like DC normally at all. Normally DC's full of garbage people, and they would be mobbing Tucker Carlson, trying to lynch him. But I don't know. Kelly says once they put it indoors, I canceled. Patty says I'm glad I said that. I don't know. Amber, tell us how your trip went.
So, I mean, it made no sense. Have you ever gone during any inauguration? Like, it's fenced. Like, it's hard to get around. The Ubers couldn't go anywhere. You can't walk anywhere. It was just chaotic.
Yeah.
And then they moved it inside, which was okay because Greenlee had an awesome watch party. It was probably one of my favorite parts of the whole thing. Is Scott Greenlee had an amazing watch party at a really cool, I don't know, restaurants, whatever it was, but it was really cool. Like the inauguration screen was up front and it was a 2-level bar. It was so cool. And we were around all of our Michigan friends. But I left Michigan to go to DC.
This was not the party that there was some kind of Michigan party that people were charging $400 to attend.
Oh, no, that was the Michigan Gala. Again, a waste of time because I did that as well.
Oh, you did?
So I just went from Michigan to DC and hung out with all the freaking people I hang out with anyway. And I love them all, but not for over $1,000 that I spent on this trip, right?
Yeah.
And I didn't cheat because I stayed with family.
Yeah.
But it was chaotic. The buzz was fine because Trump won. But besides that, DC is still the DC that it's always gonna be, and you
Yeah,
don't
of
feel
course.
good when you're there. And
Yeah.
the ball was crazy because you had to wait in long lines. Thank goodness I was up front for the ball, with
Yeah, I could
the
imagine that being
line.
a terrible thing too, trying to get into that.
It was chaotic, and then you stand the whole time, you had, singers, it was like a concert, but it wasn't great. You had a
Yeah.
comment that somebody said it was a networking thing, or
Yeah, well, so I got the impression there's two reasons I was thinking I might want to go. One is just to say I was there, just for bragging rights, and
right.
the other is like maybe the ball will be cool. But like 3 days before the event, first of all, I find out I'm reading the news there are 3 different balls, and I don't know which one I'm supposed to go to. They're like, show up at the ticket counter, and you better get there early. Just saying, because your tickets might not be there,
Right.
which is a little fishy because if I drive 500 miles, I want my ticket to be there, and so I'm like,
I had
what?
family there get my ticket, so I was lucky, but still.
Yeah, well, someone got my ticket for me, but even still, I ended up just giving it away to a friend. But anyway, so I got a funny clip. This is Matt Walsh talking about his experience with the inaugural ball. Here we go.
I was very wrong about what a ball entails because in my head, I had imagined that a ball was an event where dancing was kind of the main activity. It was what you did there. I thought it'd be 95% of what you did. I thought that's what a ball was. And it turns out, and I'm relieved by this, that balls are not even 1% dancing. Nobody dances. There's like no dancing that happens at all. What happens is that the band plays music really loud while everyone stands around drinking and shouting over it. And that's it. That's the whole thing. There's just no one dances at any point. And I guess in my head,
I did.
somewhat subconsciously, I had an image of a ball that was stuck in the 19th century because I thought that, all the women would be in big poofy dresses and the men would be wearing top hats and monocles and carrying canes. And there'd be classical music gently playing and people dancing very elegantly, and then the men would approach the women and say, "Excuse me, my lady, may I have this dance? Would you bequeath me the honor of this dance?" And they would dance and then they'd get back in their carriages and ride across a snowy pasture to their estates and die of typhoid fever because I thought, it's a very 19th century vision.
Probably.
So it turns out none of that happened. Well, we may have gotten typhoid fever. I don't know, but that remains to be seen. But the rest of it was very different from that. It's really just a marketing event. It's a rather a networking event is what it is. And I guess I should have known better that everything in DC is just a networking event. Anything at all that you do that's supposed to be for fun is always just a networking event. And so it's that, except with loud music that you have to shout over. So a lot of fun.
So yeah,
that's my spirit animal right now. Spot on. Waste of time. Wish I didn't go. And I don't mean to sound negative about it, but I'm just so over saying I'm somewhere just to be somewhere.
Yeah. So, yeah.
So you made the right decision, but so you messaged me the day before with a picture of your nephews, and I was like, oh, so he's in town, so you're coming, and then you didn't come.
No.
So
my nephews aren't in town. They're not from Washington. They live in Nevada.
I know, but you were staying with like your cousin or whatever.
Oh yeah, well,
and so I had the family members mixed up.
Oh, okay, yeah. No, my cousin is like actually technically my mother's cousin, which I guess makes him also my cousin for some reason. But no, he's like 80. No, he's not my little cousins. Or
he
my
said
little
he's
nephew.
in Bethesda, right? Because I stopped in Bethesda on the way back. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, so other things happened this week, things that Trump did.
A lot of stuff.
Almost all of them amazing, I have to say. Not 100%. We'll talk. I mean, of course, I'm going to pick and fester at the one thing I don't like, but fester's not the right word for that. But a lot of amazing, great things that he did. Not the least being the pardons. But there was also some other things. I have to say, I was skeptical at first about annexing Greenland, but the more I learn about it, the more I like it.
Yeah.
Although I do think like the whole notion that, Greenland is so great because we should really take it because it's going to be full of these awesome natural resources. I'm not sure I really entirely buy that.
Well, they have energy reserves.
Well, yeah, but I mean, there's a reason why they're not drilling there now, which is like, it's still an Arctic wasteland. I mean, Canada has energy reserves up there too, but no one wants to drill there, because it's freezing. I don't know. They're like, it's not just they're like, there's rare earth deposits there. And okay, wait a second. When you say rare earth, what do you mean exactly? Because there's a lot of substances that people call rare. It just sounds so, ooh, it's rare. Like, what is it exactly? Because there's this whole class of things, which are actually, I heard they're not even really all that rare. Like, it's just like, oh, but there's a lot of these deposits are in one place up there, but you still have to, drill through freezing rock in this Arctic wasteland environment. And it's not like it's all that convenient.
It's creating jobs, Adam. It's creating jobs.
Yeah, creating jobs that you got to commute across the Atlantic Ocean to get to, and the Arctic Sea, and it's a lot.
With all the incels and people that aren't having babies, you have tons of guys that ship over there.
I mean, here's how I would look at it. If Greenland was so great, why is it currently Denmark's? Because if Greenland was important countries would have taken it before we thought of it just now. Like, it would just be
actually very true.
Yeah. So why would the British not have it if it was important? But I like the principle, though. I like the idea that that whole northern half of the western half of the globe is ours. I do like that. It's just looks nice on the map.
I like Panama Canal. When I was 13, I did a book report on the country of Panama, and I just loved it ever since. So huge fan. Love Teddy Roosevelt. Yeah. So. Well,
I mean, in all seriousness, like that was like one of the top issues in America in like the Carter administration's years. Yep. Jimmy Carter giving away the Panama Canal was, that was a huge trap. That's one of the reasons Carter was only a one-term president, was how bad that was. And then, the other thing too, I also must say, I love that it's now Mount McKinley again, because number one, screw Obama and Denali. It's our mountain. And this is, the other thing too, like, okay, I'm sure everyone watching this channel absolutely 100% agrees. It's not the indigenous people's mountain, it's our mountain, and Mount McKinley is a suitable name for it. But I'll bet probably some people are scratching their heads a little bit about the Gulf of America thing, because it was never the Gulf of America. It was always the Gulf of Mexico. I am 100% on board with Gulf of America, and I'll tell you why. It goes in hand with the Mount McKinley thing, because the leftists are trying to destroy our history and destroy our culture, and this is what they do. They tear down memorials, they tear down monuments, they rename things. And so Trump has not just taken back Mount McKinley, he is now also going on offense. It's not so this is what we should be doing from now on, is for every statue of Robert E. Lee you knock down, Trump builds 5 more. Like, that should be the problem.
There we go.
So that's why it's okay for it to be called the Gulf of America, because why is it called the Gulf of Mexico? Nothing wrong with it, I guess. But you know what?
Or how the states are changing their flags. Like, let's go back.
If they're gonna make the Minnesota flag into Somalia's flag, and they're gonna make Mount McKinley into Denali, then why shouldn't Trump make it the Gulf of America? There should be more of these things.
I like that one. That's good.
A good start. Yeah, Trump is on there. He's onto something here. I like it.
I loved how all the DEI hires fired. Don't care.
Yeah, this is big, and it's also, there is real follow through. There is real follow through in federal employees, like, fearing for their jobs, and like high level people getting axed left and right. It is absolutely glorious, and I think this is for DEI. This is permanent, because a lot of people are just relieved that they can just drop the bullshit that they put up with this their whole freaking lives, and like now that's over with, they're just gonna be done with it. I think that's coming. I really do. And also the additional screws he's turning on with, like, you have to come back to work. Oh, you don't want to come back to work? Well, goodbye.
And the merit-based. Like, I have, and I know you do too, because you had family in Maryland. My uncle worked for Homeland Security. As a white male, he was passed over for decades.
Yeah.
Because of meritless-based raises, because they had to do it to a female, they had to do it to a minority, and finally, he's just sitting there, not incentivized to do his job. He didn't care. He's like, I'm not going to move up. You don't want a government that doesn't want to do their job or care.
Yeah. Yeah. Kelly Powell says we had to put up with the commanders and guardians. We get the Gulf of America. Yeah. Trump should rename all of the military, all the military marching bands and teams and everything, all that stuff. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And it's not even just in the public sector. You're right. But also the private sector too. I mean, Scott Adams was talking about that for decades. He's like, I worked at Pacific Bell, and they would just say, you cannot ever be a high level manager in this company because we don't do that anymore for white men. You just can't.
No.
Yeah. Patty says going back to work in
not
person.
everybody's as efficient as you at home.
Yeah. Yeah. Some people enjoy working from home. I get that. I get that for sure.
You know, the problem with working from home, and I've done it my whole life, is I never shut down.
Yeah.
I would love to just go to an office and leave the office at 5 o'clock and be like, do shit, but I can't.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I have had an office to work from recently. And now at the moment I don't. I think I need to get another one because I love being home, but I also love being at an office, because you're in a work zone and you are, I mean, obviously there's ways to loaf off at work, but there's a lot more ways to loaf off at home. That's for sure. Although I don't know about you, but I've been like super energized this whole new year. And even just in the past week, like you really feel
I know
like
your little projects, all your projects.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I'm like busy all the time these days. I'm not playing video games hardly at all anymore, except when I'm exercising now. Like when I'm on my trainer, I'm like playing Nintendo. That's only awesome, then. Adam. Yeah. That's which actually has an extra dimension to it. It's funny. Like being on a treadmill and playing Nintendo it makes Nintendo hard. It really does. It's weird because when you're just playing a game sitting on a sofa, you don't think you're thinking about anything at all. It's just like you're a potato. But actually, no, it's harder to do when you're exercising.
That's a really funny thought. But no, I'm happy for you. I think this is going to be a really great 4 years. I'm really confident in that.
Now, I would be remiss not to at least talk a little bit about Trump's interesting remarks he's made to Russia, at least, saying some things. Although I'll tell you, in the last few days, things have changed. Oh, okay. Well, so a couple days ago, it looked as if Trump was really walking right into the media's trap of letting his presidency being destroyed by getting sucked into Ukraine.
Okay.
He was putting out insane statements on X and I'm sorry, on Truth Social. He was making ridiculous claims that Russia has to come to the negotiating table, is just insulting their country, claiming 60 million Russians died in World War II, which is way, way off. And he thanked them for helping out in World War II, which a lot of Russians, because it wasn't actually the United States that marched into Berlin or even the British or the French. It was actually the Russians that fought the war. We kind of helped them out more than the other way around. But more than that, he was like, Zelensky is ready to make a deal, so Russia better make a deal with Zelensky. Now, that's also complete nonsense. Zelensky is not interested in making. The only deal Zelensky is interested in making is Russia's complete surrender. When he says, "I'll make a deal," the deal is we win. Right. And that didn't work very well.
Just give me endless amounts of money.
Yeah. We'll make a deal. The deal is you give us back all the territories, and the deal will be maybe we'll go easy on you with the war crimes trials for all the Russian officials we're going to prosecute. And you really get the sense that Trump just has no idea what's going on the battlefield. Like he was reporting CIA numbers saying, "Oh yeah, 700,000 Russians have died in this war," which is completely ridiculous. And he was also really giving the impression that he was desperate for Russia to negotiate, because he kept saying like the media kept pressing him. He said, "Yeah, we really need to negotiate. Russia really needs to negotiate. Russia really needs to negotiate." And the impression really was Trump really needs a negotiation right now. Mm-hmm. And the media kept, and all Trump needed to say, which he kept not saying, was, "This is not my war. and we'll give this a little bit of time. But if it doesn't work out, it's not. I mean, Trump's exit plan should be obvious from day one. Just, hey, Zelensky wouldn't negotiate, and we can't reach a deal. So, hey, you know, I tried, but Biden started this war, and he couldn't finish it, so I'm walking away. That's the way out. And Trump wasn't doing that. He kept on saying we got to have these negotiations, yada yada yada. And then so what happened in the last 2 days? First, there is a story that Trump is freezing all foreign aid. Okay, that sounds good. But then the next day, the story is actually no, but not to Ukraine. Arms are still going out to Ukraine. Money's still going out to Ukraine. And that's the other big hazard that's happening out there that could happen any minute now. Because up until Biden walked out of the White House, Ukraine's been using American weapons with American soldiers guiding American missiles onto targets inside Russia proper. And Russia's been okay, this is an act of war, but we know your days are very, very numbered, so it'll be okay. We can get through it because you're just hitting us with little pinprick attacks, so whatever. Mm-hmm. But if that happens while Trump's in the White House, that's an act of war that Russia has to respond to. So any day now that could happen. So but I've not heard any prominent order from Trump saying, yeah, I have absolutely terminated any attacks on Russian soil with American weapons. He hasn't said that, strangely. I guess that's not his style. But anyway, so then just yesterday, Trump actually did freeze all the aid to Ukraine immediately. Wow. And the story was everyone in the State Department is shocked. They can't believe this. Everyone in the military is stunned because they have been told to terminate all pro-Ukrainian operations immediately. And that changes everything. Because now Zelensky is in a very rapidly squeezing vice. As meanwhile, Russia is just kicking the shit out of them on the battlefield. And it's looking, and now if the aid's dried up, they don't know what they're going to do. And Europe, meanwhile, desperately, Zelensky's been going with these Europeans, the EU and also Germany and Poland, all these people trying to, and Britain, of course, trying to keep the war going and trying to work out some kind of deal where there's going to be peacekeeping forces, 200,000 peacekeeping forces, which is that's not a peacekeeping force, that's an army, and trying to get them to go into Ukraine. And they'll have a conflict freeze with American and European peacekeepers, and then when the peace breaks for whatever reason, they'll blame Russia, of course. Then there'll be a full-on conflict, and now we're sucked into it and all this stuff. And you can just tell whenever Trump talks to Europe, he's just like, "So how about that? How about the Greenland? Huh? Where's my Greenland?" And you can tell that the pressure is now on it, that Trump does not give two shits about Europe, doesn't give two shits about Zelensky. And I think part of this also was Russia passed his test. Because Trump is like, you got to negotiate. You guys helped us out in World War II, but we know your economy's in the shit house. And Russia's just like, if things go on the way they are, fine. We don't care. If you want to talk to us and we can normalize things, fine. If not, that's fine too. We don't care. That was their attitude. So,
Well, I think Russian resilience in this whole debacle and having their assets froze, they became really centralized. Gotta hand it to Russia.
Well,
all their stuff frozen.
Yeah, and the other thing too, I think that's also happened is Trump has very rapidly, because he's only been in office for 6 freaking days, I guess 7 now.
Crazy.
He's probably rapidly learning how devastated our military has been in the past 4 years because all of our strategic reserves have been blown to death.
Yeah,
and he's probably realizing what a weak hand he actually has with respect to the military at this very moment. Speaking of that, by the way, congrats to Pete Hegseth on his confirmation.
Yes. Exciting.
The 30th of Tulsi begins. I haven't heard anything about Bobby Kennedy. They're not going to confirm him, not going to even have a hearing or something. What's going on with that? It's just HHS, no big deal, no hurry on that one. There's no committees that are involved in health stuff anyway. But
they want to keep us unhealthy as possible, us Americans.
Well, I think just having Trump in the White House is making us healthier. At least the good people. The other people, not so much. Although I'm not going to say who it is, but I do have a family member who has said, very, very brainwashed person, that she's not going to watch news for the next 4 years.
I'm binge reading news now. I'm super excited.
Oh, Patty says RFK is this week. Sweet. And Kelly says that too. Okay, RFK is coming up this week. Excellent. Can't wait to see that.
Patty and her RFK crush.
Hey, I have an RFK. Hey, I got his book on my desk right here.
There you go.
Yeah.
It all turned out
Man.
really, I mean, it turned
Yeah.
out really well. We got very lucky. I'm super happy. You only have almost have the where do we go next though. I know I think Kenny said somewhere in the chat, now we got to find a governor candidate.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
on that note, I will have some news to break very, very soon on what is going on at the state level. Actually, there's something I do want to talk about right now, because
Okay.
this is a developing story in Michigan. There has been some news about those 80 some bills that the governor
Yes.
did not get. So this past, well, it just showed up on the live feeds this Monday, but apparently on January 17th, Gretchen Whitmer signed most of them. Now, she did veto some of them too, by the way, folks. She actually vetoed the bills to give parolees driver licenses before they, like, on their way out of prison. She did veto those, amazingly. But she signed most of them, which is weird because you only have 2 weeks to sign a bill. And if she signed them on the 17th, she could not possibly have received them any earlier than January 3rd. Which is when the Democrat legislature was already adjourned, gone, done. Those bills were dead. So you guys may have seen in the news, the Senate Democrats have voted to sue the House, demanding that they transmit these dead bills to the governor, which, first of all, I mean, whatever. I mean, I guess that's going to be a thing. But, it's amazing to me. And again, this goes to this classic pattern of Republican weakness. The Democrats are absolutely shameless about filing a lawsuit over bills that haven't been signed because they fucked up and couldn't get them to the governor's desk in a timely manner. But it seems to me Republicans are the ones that should be filing suit right away.
Right.
Because first off, there certainly should be an issue of how the bills were presented to Gretchen Whitmer on January 3rd when they were already dead. You can't present bills that were passed by a legislature 20 years ago, nor can you. I mean, the legislature was adjourned. That year was over. So on whose authority could any bills be presented to the governor? You and me can't present bills to the governor.
Right.
Who because we have no authority to.
Right. That chain of command is.
So there's a bill clerk reporting to which speaker?
Right.
There was none. And
so
not
that's
only
the
that,
lawsuit.
It certainly there should be a lawsuit. They absolutely should file a lawsuit. And I'll tell you what, and I can't get into too much details, but I gave some people some ideas about who might have standing to file suit because some people are directly affected by some of these bills. But besides that one argument, which I think is perfectly valid, on top of that, even if the clerk was given leave by a speaker on January 3rd or 5th or 8th or 9th or whenever, the bills are still dead. The legislature was ended on December 31st. It does not exist. Those bills were expired. Nobody, even with the leave of the House Speaker, Matt Hall was not the speaker when those bills were adopted.
Right.
These bills, every single one of these bills should be declared null and void.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I want to believe Republicans haven't filed their lawsuit yet because they're doing their due diligence. Whereas the Democrats filed their lawsuit as a talking point and it was hastily thrown together. But somehow I doubt any of that. I don't know what it is. And again, look,
we should be more optimistic. I know I did a little laugh there, but I do have faith in the new administration.
I will believe it when
you've been around a little bit longer.
Yeah. I hope I'm wrong.
Yeah.
But I'll believe it when I see it.
Right.
But yeah, there should be some lawsuits filed, guys. And again, in the big scheme of things, the biggest story still is hundreds of bills died that the Democrats wanted to pass. So this is just at this point fighting over the cream, over the bill, over like the 75 some bills. So we'll see where that goes. But yeah, and the Republicans should be fighting back even harder over these. Besides the 80 some bills, there's also the nine the media hasn't even been talking about, which were never presented to the governor because Matt Hall pulled them back because they had not even been given to the clerk or something at that point. So But yeah, it's hard to even imagine. I mean, I understand we have a partisan Supreme Court, but even still, I find it hard to believe that they can go along with all this garbage.
Well, that's something that should be a precedent at the Supreme Court level. I mean, that could be picked up to put in bills after. Like, no, that's something that affects every state.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's this. I already mentioned earlier, someone should be impeaching that freaking judge in Kent County. Any one Republican state lawmaker could do that.
I didn't even know that story. So you bringing that to light and hitting that, we should do it like you did the.
What I want to do is, you know, who really should hop on this story, who would really embrace it, is Matt Walsh, because he is huge at going after these left-wing racist lynchings, which is what that Christopher Schur case is. So yeah, I've talked about him on the show before, but I'll talk about him more, absolutely, because that is coming up. That's coming up in April. That is a big story. And while on the subject of Republicans growing some balls, and we'll see if they ever do, I'll tell you another thing that they could do. Starting in the last term, when the Democrats had both chambers, all the bills began to be written with gender fluid language, which means whenever they draft a bill, not only what they do when they draft bills is every section of law that a bill amends, they will, they'll cross off what they're adding in or cross off what they're removing and write in what they're adding in. But what they also do with the Legislative Services Bureau, the bill drafters, what they do is they also, anything that happens to be in that section that has some kind of like cosmetic change they want to make for whatever reason, they'll put those in too. Like, for example, a lot of times you'll see bills where they're crossing out the word shall and writing in the word must. And there's some very minor legal meaning that the lawyers understand, but most people don't. Anyway, so what they've been doing is everywhere crossing off he or she, which probably used to be just he, then they became he and she. Now they're writing in the individual, to the point where I have even seen some Democrat bills that say pregnant person. They've been putting these things in everywhere. No more he or she, because that's gendered. Now it has to be the individual, whatever individual that person might be. So now, however, Matt Hall's the speaker. Democrats still in control of the Senate. So who does Legislative Services Bureau report to? Well, I mean, technically they report to whoever, the individual lawmaker is, but certain things like that, they basically just do because the speaker says so. So I think Republicans should say from now on, no, we're going to start amending first of all, every mandatory act we say goes back to the he or she, always gendered language, never pregnant person. And any bills that come from the Senate, at a minimum, those all get crossed off. Fight over that little minor stuff. I think they should. Might seem petty, but these petty things are so these are our cultural watermarks. What's the word I'm looking for? That's not the right word. It goes back to the statues and the naming of Mount McKinley and the Gulf of America. We should not tolerate bills that say pregnant person and things like that. We should demand good language in our bills again. I don't know. We'll see. John King says Michigan's new senator who won with the help of the anti-Rodgers campaign was on a Sunday morning ABC started saying she's against Tulsi. Of course she is. Yeah.
Well, they voted for Kristi Noem though. Slacken did. So did Peters.
Of course you would, because it's one deep state party. I'm not a fan of Kristi Noem, folks. I don't know if you knew that or not. She tortures and murders dogs. Yeah, notice the Democrats don't complain about. It's not going to be people like Marco Rubio, who they assume is just the average standard establishment person. No, it's people like, even if they're Democrats, people who are anti-establishment. And in time, I mean, most Democrats, it doesn't matter who the candidates are, because they're totally brainwashed. But there are people who see these things. And it was a big difference in Michigan. A big part of that was the Dearborn vote, who are disenchanted with the Democrat Party and have had enough and are walking away. There's going to be more and more and more of those. So I think Trump's going to make a lot of them even crazier, because he'll be doing the things he did in his first term, but this time he'll be even better at it. In fact, he'll be good at it. he'll actually be very good at it, as opposed to not being good at him at all. He is pushing his agenda through at breakneck speed. And the draining of the swamp is been the most encouraging thing. That alone is setting the tone for so much stuff, for so many things. So I'm pretty excited, guys. I don't know about you. And I've got an announcement to make. Thank you. Had reminded me about this earlier, like a half hour ago now. I have an event to plug. There is a state chair candidates forum coming up on February 5th. And I believe Patty and me, and I think our friend Matt Wilk is going to be moderating the event too at the Imagine Theater in Canton. And that is, there's a link on the screen there, PCRC Imagine 2026 with the Plymouth Canton Republicans Club. That sounds like a cool group of people. Is going to be having their first event, a state chair candidate forum, Wednesday, February 5th. So that sounds like a blast. I will be there. You guys should come too. It'll be a lot of fun. Be a lot of good people there.
It feels
And I
like
gotta
just
say,
yesterday, Patty, you and I were throwing a co-event from the 11th in Plymouth, and look at us now.
yeah, we've got some we've got some big announcements coming, folks. I've got some big announcements coming, but I have to bite my tongue for another day or two. But there's big stuff coming very, very soon, folks. I'm looking forward to telling you all about it. So
I don't even know.
I'll tell. Well, stay online after we end the stream, and I'll tell you.
That sounds
But yeah,
great.
there's some good stuff coming. Yeah, Kelly says that'll be great with Matt as the moderator. Yes, it will. That's Matt as a moderator. You mean Kelly? Me and Amber are gonna be moderator. No, me and Patty are gonna be moderator. Excuse me. Sorry, Amber, you're not in this.
No,
Yeah, me and
I don't
Patty-
do Wayne. I can't go to Wayne without asking Patty, and she wouldn't let me. But no, that's great. I'll plug the Washington Day dinner we have for the Grand New Party is coming up on February 7th at Patty's favorite place, Stefan's in Redford. It's going to be based on the 10th Amendment, and we're going to be honoring Senator John Lindsay. He's great.
Patty's not, she's the MC. Okay, well, I guess Matt and me are being moderators then, or something. I don't know. We'll be there. I'm sorry, Amber.
And then we have we have a great 10th Amendment specialist speaker, and we're gonna have a band and great food and great people. So visit gnppac.com for tickets and information, or follow us on social media. And that's the next big thing on my stuff.
Awesome. Stephanie says, one thing I've learned is whether you cut 50 cents or 50 grand, the wailing and gnashing of teeth is the same. So just push it through. It'll be worse if you try to rearrange the deck chairs. Yeah, absolutely. And that's what Trump understands too. They're going firing all cylinders everywhere. And it's hilarious. The media can't even keep up, whether it's Tom Homan telling him how many people are being deported this week, or JD Vance on Faith the Nation today. They're asking him about, well, we're a nation of immigrants. No, we're not. We're a nation of settlers. Buzz off. Oh, man, you love to see it. That's like something I've never heard Republicans say on TV before. That's why Ann Coulter's not allowed on TV, because she was saying things like that. But now that Vice President's saying it, that's exciting. That stuff Mike Pence would never say. Oh, yeah, Todd Gilman is also a moderator. Yeah, that's right. Me, Matt, and Todd. It's going to be awesome. So
Todd Gilman? You're letting Todd Gilman come up and moderate, Patty? No, Todd's great. That's going to be so much fun. Todd's awesome. He's running for the 5th district.
On Rumble, Mary says, Security for America and Greenland residents are liking the idea. Yeah, I mean, hey, we'll take them. You know, I think the idea of expanding our territory for the first time in decades sounds kind of nice. You know, it's a good thing. Also says Cash Tulsi on RFK this week. Yep. And also Trump needs to push term limits. Well, I don't know. He's also, some people are trying to expand his term limits though. So I don't know. But we'll see. We'll see where that goes.
No, I mean, consecutive. The word consecutive's in there, and I might be one of those people. We'll see.
You know, speaking of that, I'm surprised Democrats didn't try to claim that Trump was ineligible to be president this term because he's already won twice. Because the Constitution does say that. I mean, what we saw with the business with the pardons is, like, usually with hypocrisy, there has to be a time lapse, right? Like, you say one thing, you say the opposite thing, but there's some time in between. There has to be time in between so you can separate them mentally or rhetorically. You know, when you're being a hypocrite, you do one thing, say the opposite, but you say the one thing, and then time passes, and then you be a hypocrite. But now with the term limits, with the pardon stuff, now Democrats are being hypocrites in the same freaking breath. Yeah. The January 6th people, we forgot to talk to Jeremy about this, but they've been trying to resist the pardons, some of them.
Yeah.
Oh, Trump can't pardon these people. Oh, these people still have to be locked up. I guess we talked about it a little bit, but we're going to talk about it more. But also, Trump can't pardon his family, but Biden can pardon his. Like that's what hypocrisy is to Democrats now. So I'm surprised Democrats didn't try to claim that, okay, Trump can't be president now because he won in 2020. Yes, we stole the election, but doesn't matter because Trump won the election in 2020. He can't be president now because the Constitution says you can't be president in a third election. So therefore, Trump can be president. Like I'm surprised Democrats didn't try that card. Because why not? Because the rules are totally off with them.
Right.
But,
oh, this
all
is great.
Says I'm heading to Canton now. Todd's a moderator. There you go. All right, guys. I'll put the link on the screen again, just so if you didn't catch it, if you want to RSVP, you can always. I lost the link. You can always pause the video right now. Oh, there it is. PCRC Imagine 2026.eventbrite.com. RSVP for the event. So there you go. It'll be fun. We'll talk more about the state. I've been, this is like the third stream now. I've said we should talk more about the state chair candidates, but I guess at least for now I should procrastinate because I got to be neutral because I'm going to be a moderate this thing in a couple weeks. All right. Anyway,
you know what? I'm staying out of the whole thing. I'm going to CPAC. That's what I keep telling people. This is the first time I'm actually being, because Runstead's my senator, Michonne Maddock and Matt Maddock. I mean, she was my mentor. He's my state rep. You know, Scott Greenlee's a friend. I'm just staying out of it.
Right on. Well, we should still talk at some point about it because one of them will be the state chair. So, all right.
And they all have pros and cons. Like I'll help out with whoever. I'm down for whatever.
For
That's
sure.
what I've learned.
Yeah. All right, guys. More to come soon. Thank you for tuning in once again. Thanks for all you guys do for liberty. Until next time. Peace.